Now, for a final word from our sponsor, as we go on to the last topic of our Math 1108 course, Section 3 of Chapter 10, Measures of Center. I'm doing this on the Saturday before final exam week in our spring term, where we are off campus and have the pandemic as a background to all of this. Gave me some time being home in my little work office here to get things done. So let's wind this up. In the objectives, we see we're looking often at data, and it may be spread around, and we sometimes wonder, well, what is the center of that data? What item of data is used the most times? What is the average of that data? And that's what we're going to be looking at as we go through topic 3 of section 10. Now, if you were in a lab and you were doing some sort of experiment and we're in the first quadrant, and then this is your data. And you might say, well, what is the measure of center? Well, one thing you might do is develop like a little line going through that. And you might say the trend of this line is summarized by that solid line of this data. It might be a little higher, might be a little lower. So that would give you an idea of what it's like maybe in theory, and then this is your practicality of doing the experiment, where the line might be the classic, this is the dotteds are the empirical. So what tool do we have then in math for this? Well, we'll raise it up a little bit, and it brings us to our first term, and that is the mean. Now, when you think of the mean, and you're going to write that word down, of course, and the synonym, perhaps, of the mean is the word average. The formal name, arithmetic average or mean. The mean would be the word we're looking for. And this is symbolized by the letter X with a bar on top of it. This would be of a sample. You list the number of items in the sample, their scores, whatever, and then divide by the number of items that you have here. And then they have this Greek symbol here called sigma. We want to write that down. Might be a quiz question. And sigma is the sum of the values of your individual terms. This stands for the sum. And then that is divided by n, which is the number of items in there. This will give you your mean. And this is something we've had before. And, we said what would be the other score in order to get a mean, to get an average of something. We've done those before. Now, for example 1, we're asked to find the mean of these scores. So the protocol would be you write these all down and then count how many you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're going to get the sum of these divided by 10. And in your booklets, you're going to show this work. And you get the mean is 16.2. And the question might be, what is X bar? For this is another way of saying the mean, the sigma as a sign of the sum. So something easy. All right, let's go on to our next example. For example 2 now, here we have these scores on a test. There are 8 values. Add them all together, divide by 8 gives you this. So the mean of the test is 81.75. Now, a word I'd like you to add to your vocabulary is written up down here. That actually you're hearing this in the news every once in a while, and they speak of what is called an outlier. Now, normally when you look at your data, and here all of these scores are sort of, in the ballpark, and so is this one. But this one right here, that's not in the ballpark. That one is considered the outlier. Why? Because they're really far away from the central measure of what we're going on here. That's actually pulling down the average. So we as teachers often look at that. And if we get a series of tests, and let's say somebody who hasn't been attending class is not doing the homework, and they end up with, just by guessing, they get a 20 on a test. And you might say, should I include that as an average of what the students who have been participating and working on their assignments and everything are getting? And often we as teachers say, no, we're not going to count that. And we consider that an outlier. Okay? Good word to have in your vocabulary. Again, it's used in events today. Another key term in looking at the measure of center is the word median. Now, all of our terms, interestingly, start with an M. We've had mean so far. We have medium that we're going to talk about now, and then later we're going to talk about mode. So, they tend to get a little confusing, so you just have to, spend a little time with studying and repetition. Now, median, generally with a series of scores, the protocol to find the median is you put them in order, from lowest here to highest, lowest to highest. And then if you have, let's say, 13 items of data, you go to the middle one, which is going to be item number 7. So over on this side, you have 6 items of data, and on this side, you have 6 items of data, and you have your 7th in the overall position. Well, that score in the middle of your data lined up in this fashion is the median. And that's what they're talking about here. Now, there's one little difficulty, is suppose you only have 12 scores and you're lining them up. So theoretically, there's 6 on this side, 6 on this side, and there is, in a sense, no middle. Well, what we do in that case, when the total number is an even number, we divide this side up into 5 plus 1, and then 1 plus 5, and we take our 2 middle terms, that would be the 6th and 7th position when they're lined up, and then take the average of that, those two, and then that becomes the median. Okay, let's see some examples. Now, here are our scores as they are presented to us. This is example 3 originally, but they're not lined up. So you have to develop a plan. You scan it and say, oh, there's a 9. I'm going to put that first. Scan it again and say you have a 12. Well, there are 2 12s, so you put those together. Then you see the 13, 1, 14, 1, 15, 1, 16, 17, 18. So it takes a little bit of time manually putting them in the lineup from lowest to highest. And then you count how many you have. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so 9, you're going to have 4 on one side, 4 on the other, but since it's odd, the median then jumps out at you as 14. Again, take some notes. You want to know what the median is, and if it's an odd number, it's the middle one after you've lined them up. Now, for example 4, this is our original data. We're going to take time, line it up. We see we have an even number. There's 12 altogether. So in a sense, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You will take the two in the middle here, the 14 and the 15, add them together, get 29, then divide by 2, so your median then is 14.5 when it's even. Some nice, simple examples showing the protocol. You want to have this in your notes. And then going to our third item here, mode. So mode is when you look at your data, which item was used most often. And, you look at the scores and you got 4 that had a 90. And that was the most. Well, that's a uni mode, and it would be 90. Now, if you look over it, you see you had 3 that had 82 and 3 that had 92 out of all of your data, then this would be considered bimodal, and you would say it's bimodal, and the modes would be 82 and 92. So here's a case where you have to look at the data in some detail. And here it's illustrated in example 5. So we kind of do a quick survey and say, well, wait a minute. There's a 16, there's a 16, there's a 16. Any other number used more than 3 times? No. So this is unimodal, and the mode is 16. Now, as you do your practice and certify, they're going to ask to find all 3 of a set of data. So again, I think relatively something easy to wind up our work in this course. Going on to example 6, again, they're asking us to find the mode. So we start looking through and we say, wait a minute, there's a 16 there, a 16 there, and a 16 there. And I see another 15 coming up, so I have a 15. And then as I look through this, well, gee, I got a 12 there, 12 there, and a 12 there. All right. So I have a 12, a 15, and a 16 all used as the mode. They're all used 3 times. So when that occurs, it's called a multimodal mode. All right. Now, in measuring of central tendency and frequency distribution, this kind of example, there is a couple of things to look for and note as we go through it. So this is example 8, and we'll raise it up so we can see the data chart a little better. Now, for this example, they want us to find the mean, the median, and the mode. Now, in finding the mean, we have to keep in mind as we look at the data that here the frequency of 0, that is, no one reading a book, was 3. And then following through, these were the number of books that were read, and this is how often it occurred. So in finding the mean, we take a look at how they set it up here. Again, they're looking for the sum, and we had to go 3 times 0. Of course, that's going to be 0. 5 times 1 is 5. 6 times 2 is 12. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 2 is 8. 5 times 1 is 5. And then when we add up our totals here, we see that 39 books were read that month. But how many instances was this? Well, the frequency was 3, 5, 6, 2, 3, 2, 1. It's a total of 20. So here we're going to divide our 39 by the number of incidents we're recording as data, which is 20, which gives us a mean then of 1.95. Now, what would be the median of this? Well, for the median, and I'll clear that up so you can see it, we're going to start to list how many zeros were there. That is, no books read. Well, there were 3. How many read one book? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then how many read 2 books? Well, we said there were 6 of those. So we have a total of 20. So what would be the middle? Well, we said before, if we have a total of 20, then there's going to be 10 on this side, 10 on that side. But as we inspect the data, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Items 10 and 11 are both 2. So our median then is 2. Again, there's a number of ways to illustrate that. Some have suggested, you put 0, 1, 2, 3, and you could make like 1, 2, 3 ticks there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ticks there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and fill it in, and then physically count them this way. This is just another way of doing it. I kind of like this way, and again, you want to understand the theory behind it. Now, as we look at the original data chart, and we'll clear this up now and go back up. There's our phone again. When it's set up like this, picking out the mode is rather easy because you look at the frequency and there it jumps out at you. So the frequency is 6, but the mode now is not 6. That's just the number of times. The mode is 2. That is the item of data that's used the greatest number of times. Now, for our last item of measure of center is what is called the weighted mean. And here we have a series of scores, and I'll raise that up. And again, always keep in mind you could have watched the video produced by Hawks. They're very useful. And there's the traditional way of finding an average, where if homework is 95% of the grade and your quizzes are 85% and your exam average is this, then you just divide by 3. You get this average here. But as we have in our course and in most courses, the various categories have a different weight. So what we would do for this other here, if they're saying here, the weights add up to 100%, but homework is 10% of your grade, quizzes are 30% of your grade and exams are 60% of your grade, you're going to take 10% of the 95, 30% of the 85, 60% of the 87, and then that works out to be 87 or 872. So based on the weight, these average grades result in something like this. So the weighted mean, and we indicate the weighted mean, they're not showing us that here, but we put a W with a bar over it, as opposed to X with a bar for the arithmetic mean. This is the weighted mean. Okay, well, this is our last lesson. You're going to do your certify, wind up your certification points, and then I'm assuming we'll have our last test on this, and then followed by our final exam. And wish everyone good studying and getting good averages. This is not a bad average to have, but hopefully you're even doing better. All right.